welcome back to Getaway Girls TV. Today we've got Paulette on and we'll be interviewing her and her role in Getaway Girls and also in music and in poetry. And we'll also be discussing topics on racial justice as well. So yeah, I'm Sarah.
I'm Rebecca.
Hello, I'm T and I work for Getaway Girls.
Hi, I'm Paulette. I'm a singer-songwriter, creative writing tutor, and I work for Getaway Girls.
So, Paulette, how did you first start writing poetry and music?
Well, I was born in 1963. So in my teenage years, it was in the 70s. And the community was very much, very isolated and very much, I would say, discriminated against. So I think there was a lot of creativity that happened at that time. And there was the Rasta movement, which was talking about identity and who you were. And I think we didn't feel as if we belonged in this country in the 70s because they constantly was telling us to go back home and you weren't wanted. And our parents had so much optimism about coming here to this country. But I think us being born here really kind of were reflecting on our experiences in school, which our parents didn't go to the schools. They went to schools back home. So they couldn't understand when we were saying, these teachers saying these things. Or I mean, I'll tell you one incident. And I think that's why I think as a child we grew up quite quickly. I just started this particular school, and I was in the class and I held my hand up because I didn't understand what the teacher was saying because he had his back to us and he was writing and talking at the same time. And I said, "Sir, I don't understand. Could you repeat that?" And he said, "How dare you? How dare you?" And I what was he talking about? Everybody was quiet, and he said, "Get on that chair." He made me stand on my chair for the whole session, for the whole of that class, and stand on the table, not the chair, the table. And I had a short skirt on. It was I felt the worst person ever. It just really affected me. And I never, ever, ever asked a question, ever, ever again. And nobody in the class asked a question. And I very quickly in the 70s, growing up, realized we were very isolated. So we would have parties in the community. Nobody really went out of the community, and we were very isolated, but absolutely fantastic, vibrant, creative place. But music and writing was always my way of coping. So I may write down things that I was going through. You know, my sister, you know, she was like a bit of a bully to us, but then again, she was the leader of the house when my mum was at work. So, you know, she might, you know, "You're supposed to wash the dishes." And I'd be like, "I hate her. She shouldn't have said that to why she should say that to me." And I'd write it down because I wouldn't necessarily say it to her. And, you know, I think writing was always my way of just expressing how I felt. Because again, my parents didn't really think this would happen in England. England was an amazing place for them. That was a dream place for them to go. But our reality was different. It was through the music as well. I felt I understood who I was because the music told us about Africa and told us about our identity and to love yourself and to, you know, check yourself and, you know, Babylon system and the oppressors. And that was our experience. It might not have, my parents probably knew it, but they didn't want to hand it to the children. But that was our experience. So music was a big, big part. It was educational. And it was recreational as well because we couldn't actually go to town or go to the clubs. I mean, when you went to Leeds City Centre, there was not one black person that worked in the shops at all. I think there was one black girl that worked in Lewis's, and yeah, I think that was it. So you didn't really see much representation of yourself. So
just going back, sorry, to the music, what was it like being part of a successful reggae band, like with your sister as well? Like, what was that like for you?
I think that was the most amazing time and the most amazing experience because we experienced traveling and coming out of Chapeltown and going to places like London, which was very diverse, and we couldn't believe that, you know, people were working in shops, and we were just like absolutely gobsmacked because Leeds was very much not like that. And yeah, we traveled all over the country, and we've got to travel abroad as well. And we got to work with some amazing people. I've met some amazing, amazing people along the way. And I think the music has, yeah, really been amazing, like inspiration for me in terms of opening up the door to work with other creative people. I think
who actually inspires you, Paulette? Talking about inspiration, who actually inspires you?
Ooh, that's a scary. And that's the weirdest thing. I tell you what inspires me. We set up a group called Legion Authors over 15 years ago, well, probably more. And we used to travel to America every year to slam poetry. And I think as young people in America, that's the thing that blew my mind, to hear these young people so eloquently speak about their condition, and to hear young people speak about what affected them, and climate change to politics and these are BME communities from all over America. And I think that was very inspiring to see young people. I don't see that here. I don't see young people with a voice here, and that blew my mind. And we were so grateful because all of the young people that came to America really benefited from that insight into what you could be, what you could do, and how open we are. We're very closed here. So I think that was the most inspirational. And I think those young people in Brave New Voices in America absolutely inspired me. Yeah.
What made you want to work for Getaway Girls?
For me, working for Getaway Girls has been fantastic, actually, because it's my community. And so to work for your community is the best reward ever. So working away, a lot of my work takes me away, but actually coming back home and then being able to share with my people is fantastic. And Chapeltown is everything to me. So Chapeltown is all my memories. And when I walk down the streets, I remember myself as a child. And, it's an amazing place to live. So yeah, being able to work for Getaway Girls has been, for me, an inspiration as well. Because I think just ordinary people are just amazing for me. And their stories are amazing, and their survival, how we survive this place. Definitely. And how we survive all the pressures.
I'm interested to know, Paulette, what do you think of the current Black Lives Matter movement? How is it similar or different to movements that's happened in the past? And do you see any kind of real change with what's happening at the moment?
Well, I think for us in the 70s, we experienced, we were called coloured people then, and then they changed it to Black British, yeah. So I remember a lot of things in terms of the changing and the riots. We actually rioted in the 70s, and yeah, we burnt down our communities, but I think it was our way of the frustration that we felt with the lack of opportunities. And I think it's systemic. I think it's ingrained, and I think it's sad. And to watch the Black Lives Matter movement has been inspiring, but also really sad. So it's been two things for me. Really sad to think that this has been handed down to a next generation, and it just keeps going and going. And we've had so many reports that tell us what this thing is and why it is and what we need to do about it. And it doesn't seem like nobody either thinks it's important or it's just not on their agenda. And to see it happen across the world, that wherever people of colour seem to be across the world, they're suffering this discrimination and this prejudice, and it's ingrained in society, and we have to stand up for it. And for me, we've known this all along. As Black people, from the day I realised I was in this world, I've known about racism, and I've been definitely subject to it. And to think that conversation has always been walking on eggshells. Oh, you've got a chip on your shoulder, or why it's not real. Well, it's not. It might not be real if you've never experienced it. If you've never experienced racism, then of course you're not going to think it exists. But it does, and I think our voices. We have to raise our voices. But this is a conversation white people need to have.
Yeah,
they need to have that conversation. We've had it all along, and we know exactly what the issues are, and they do. But the structures and the powers need to really make an effect. And they have made a law, and that really made me sad. And I remember when the race relations law was redone, and I used to feel absolutely disgusted that they'd have to have a law to make sure I get a job. That to me disgusts me. And even for my daughters, it disgusts me that there has to be a law that makes people employ you. I just think that on a basic...
I think the tragic death of George Floyd has really highlighted the whole fact that Black people need that independence and that power back to be able to go through have doors open for them instead of like having somebody open the door for them. You know, I
Yes.
feel like for a long time, Black people, obviously, as we all know, have been oppressed, and we've not had the same opportunities as people that aren't Black or brown. And I feel like this whole death of George has really heightened that whole wanting to fight for that change. You know, it's been going on, like you said, for many years, but it'd be interesting to know, like, from a young perspective, from Rebecca and Sarah, like, what are your thoughts on the current Black Lives Matter movement? You know, do you think there's possible change, and what do you think that change might look like?
I think it's quite sad that we're even still having to have this conversation, because we're not even talking about really, it's not even about even securing rights. It's just basically about Black people having the right to actually live and to exist and not be killed in the street. Not even talking about all equal opportunities in life. It's just the right to actually live. So it's quite sad. And I think for a lot of people, it kind of lifted the veil up of their eyes. Like, people like to say, oh, like, I don't see colour, and we don't really have things like that happen anymore. That was all like in the 60s. We've kind of moved past that now. But it's shown that we haven't really moved past it. So for some people, this is their first time actually thinking, oh no, like, life is not all rainbows and sunshine for everyone. Some people have different experiences. So hopefully that leads to more people having awareness, because when people even bring stuff up, some people are like, oh, you're just playing the race card, like nothing, it's not even that bad here anymore. And people say, oh, well, that's only in America that happens. That doesn't happen here. But when you actually look at things that have happened, and like even with the Windrush scandal, it's proven that we might be more sophisticated in hiding the things that we do, but it still happens.
Definitely, I agree with that.
So that the movement isn't like losing any momentum. Like, I see videos every now and then come up on my feed that like show how there's still massive protests going on, and they're really peaceful and great. I love that we have the technology now to be able to show everything that's going on, like the tear gassing of peaceful protesters and, you know, police brutality. We wouldn't have been able to see any of that before. All of that could have been brushed under the rug, and I think that's really powerful because we have that tool now to try and spread across different races, different countries, to be able to like unify and share our common experiences of racism and unifying against it and trying to protest against it and to coordinate ourselves against it. So far there has been like some laws introduced like about no knock warrants and police brutality specifically, but it's difficult to see sometimes though when you're like on social media and you see people saying, oh, you know, if you're getting tired of reading about all of this, you know, take a break from your social media. And it's just a bit like, people don't get to take a break from this when it's their actual lives. Just because you're getting tired, it doesn't mean that it's not still happening. You need to be consciously fighting all the time against it, just like people are consciously battling racism, systematic and personal, every single day. So yeah, it's hard to see things like that, and to see that people, the irony of it, that people don't see like what this is all about. And I also don't like seeing because obviously everyone has a voice on social media, even some people that you disagree with, and there's a lot of people on there that dehumanize people. Say with George Floyd, the original excuse was he was resisting arrest, but this is a thing, like, if people were equal, then if he was resisting arrest, he would have been, you know, put into custody and put into handcuffs. He wouldn't have been knelt on and he wouldn't have been killed. Whereas if somebody else did that and they weren't that colour, then they would have lived and they would have gone into custody.
And there's many videos that are surfacing that are actually showing that, which is so like frustrating. And just like, I think as a Black person, as a Black woman, you know, I didn't know George Floyd, I didn't know his family, but you know, you connect automatically because you know, you can understand how his family are going to be feeling, you know, just the fact of the colour of his skin, that he was treated this way. What would you say would be the three main changes that you would like to see off the back of this? For me, like I said a bit ago, like I would like to see Black people be able to have a certain element, well, not a certain element of power, the same amount of power as everybody else in the world. I would also like to see the Black economic system like built up. Like we need to build our own economic system so that we have things within our community for ourselves, so we can build that. We can build that wealth, and you know, we can show it to the future for the kids, you know, that this is what we've been able to build. And then also I feel like in terms of 3 changes, I feel there needs to be systemic change in terms of like vetting teachers, police, you know, having some type of psychology testing before they go into these roles, so that we're vetting these people and we're seeing how their mind works. At the end of the day, these people are going to be potentially teaching our children. And if they have deep-rooted racism within them, then, you know, we don't want that to be happening in our schools. So I know that it's a deep-rooted system anyway, but why not try and kind of look at new people coming into these roles and really vetting them and making sure that they're the right people to be looking after our kids, to policing our streets, in these high-powered jobs where Black people need to be as well.
I absolutely agree with all your 3, because I really do think education, I think if you're not educating the nation, because a lot of people say, I'm not racist and I don't see colour, well, actually I'm a Black woman. You've got to see that I'm Black, come on. You know, this idea just sweeps away the idea that there's nothing happening. And I think the education would help. And like you said, I agree, they're everywhere. They're everywhere, everywhere. And the idea of it being so overt, yes, they used to put "Wogs Go Home" on the wall in my time, but now it's so subtle. It might be you coming for that job and being presented with, oh, you know, just not quite right. You've got all the qualifications, just don't fit in our office. You don't fit in our community of how we do this. And
it's
I think
now
many
called unconscious bias, isn't it?
Yes, it is, like, unconscious bias.
Words that they just throw around. It's just.
Yes, I think it's in the criminal justice system, because I work with a lot of young people at the side of the criminal justice system, and I think there's a lot of work to be done in terms of sentencing and how judges, so it's not just police, it's judges, it's the whole system needs relooking and re-educating, because they will look at a Black boy and think, okay, you come from that area and you must know, you must be in a gang. A group of Black boys in a group is a gang, and a group of white guys is just a group. It's just, I think it's still prevalent in some people's mind, because they fear coming to Chapeltown. I mean, I've done many workshops with young people, and you know, and their idea of Chapeltown is you're going to get shot. You're going to get shot. You know, don't go down there. You must know about drugs. You must. So there's these stereotypes, and I think how do you get rid of that? Is by educating. Again, I would look at history too, and I would look at how we teach history and how. Again, the monuments were one of the issues, and I think that needs to be addressed. Not that they're dragging them down, is that they're actually re-educating people and letting them know the full story. And I think it's been always their story, and I think they need to include the people from why we're here. Why are we here? There's a reason why we're here. Colonialism, we need to teach that, let people understand what contribution our forefathers made to this country, why it is Great Britain. It wasn't just their own efforts. So I think being able to be, I always believed it's a shared history, and I think that needs to be changed, that it's a shared history. The Caribbean wasn't just the Caribbean. My parents didn't just turn up in the Caribbean. They were brought there, you know, and the system was made, and via England had something to do with it. The stately homes that are here, you know, Harewood House again, you know, they reckoned with the fact that, they own slaves, and that's where they got their wealth from. Everyone should do that and let that be known, and then let that be known. And I think the third thing, again, is the law, that there should be some consequence for your racist behaviour. And I think Black people should be believed if they say that they have felt. I think we're not believed. Again, it's a race card. It's our imagination, and I think we're traumatized people, and we need to be recognised. We have suffered, just like any other nation that they may hold and say, you know, this could never happen again. We've suffered, and we've been traumatized generation after generation after generation, and we just get pushed to the side. Oh, well, that was so long ago. It doesn't matter, you know, just forget it. We can't forget it. Cannot forget it. And so we're not, we are people of love, because we still love people. We love white people, we love Asian, we love everybody. We could have burnt down everywhere. We could have really properly been so angry, but we're not that type of people. Our people are good people, very good people, you know, to say what they have suffered, the trauma that they're carrying, and the trauma that we've handed back to our children. So please, history, let's readdress the historical figures, and you know, in the museums. But yeah, I've gone on too long, but that's my thing.
You could go on for days about this subject.
Yeah.
I've got so much I want to say, but
Yeah.
obviously we're time consumed and we can't really go off too much. But do you want to add another one before Sarah?
Three main changes. I think housing and stuff like that bothers me. I don't like where people get put in housing, and when you look at, when you go from like a bad area to a good area, and you can literally just see the difference in diversity and like how that changes. I don't like that. And you know, in college I started learning about like phenomenons, like, you know, where when more people of colour start moving in, more white people actually start moving out. And then that's what it takes out the wealth from that area, and then everything, like, you got all kinds of, I don't know how to describe it, like it goes like less good. I don't know how to really describe it.
Maybe that's why they call them, sorry to cut you, they call them ghettos. So they would call it a ghetto.
And so like, and then you just end up like generation after generation, you grow up in that area, and then because you're in an area that's underfunded, then it's just kind of a cycle. And I think that one of the main changes I want to see come out of this as well is, you know, more places like Getaway Girls, more places like for the youth, and for people to come and feel represented and feel like they have a place to go, because since the cuts started getting made, that's when things started getting worse. And that's like a big thing. Like, it'll be a big help, I think. I agree with everything that you guys said too. I think education, I think too many people are in denial. They're just too in denial about the history. I don't understand it, I don't get it, but it's like, it's there, the history is there for you to see. You just choose to ignore it, and you choose to be selective about what you're seeing. I think if they were educated about it in school when education is compulsory, then, and they'd had these discussions then maybe people would be more open-minded and more understanding, more empathetic. But
and I think for me, definitely housing, as I think also media representation, because I think we live in a world where like media is king, and people don't really like notice it, but you are being indoctrinated by the images that you see, and that's where the so-called unconscious bias comes from. You always see white people in power, the white man is the savior in the movies. The white woman's a damsel in distress. So I see all these viral videos in America of like these so-called Karens calling the police and saying, "This black man's gonna get me," and everything like that.
Sorry, that was funny.
It's true, and it's disgusting. And,
so really, we need to see like positive, because a lot of people have like an image of what a black person is and like how they behave. And like, even we've got like gone to things and like to say that they've got good grades, and you can tell that they're shocked that if you want to see like some black kids or Asian kids, and they say, "Oh, I'm wanting to do this further in life," they're kind of shocked that you even have an ambition. So they don't really see it, and they don't want to say that they're shocked, but you can see that they are. Like, when they see you, they're shocked that that you can speak well for yourself. And I think that really affects how people think. And then also for the education, like at my primary school, majority of us were like black, so we did Black history, and we learned about different cultures and different things like that, and different religions from across the world, and it was like more multicultural. But for a lot of white people, like, they can't even imagine like learning about other things like that. And like, because I went predominantly Black primary school and a predominantly white high school, when I would even say, well, most people at my primary school were Black, they'd say, "Are there even that many Black people here for that to even happen?" Like, and they were supported by white people all the time. They didn't even like think there were that many of us even there to like populate a school. And it's like, oh, well, what was that like? And do you think we're racist? And they're asked different questions. But really, it's some of them they say, oh, well, I don't know, like, I'm not racist. But when you look at the actions and like little things they might say where they think it's innocuous, but we're thinking, oh, no, like, you've got some issues there. I think that's what we really need to weed out. Because then those people with the small issues in school,
Yes.
they'll end up going into these high positions later in life.
Absolutely.
And they take these biases from their childhood.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Can I just say that I went to a black school here in Chapeltown, and then I went to a very white school way up in Headingley. And the contrast was just exactly what you said. I just found it just like, oh my goodness me, you know, I was the only black girl in my class, and it was just horrendous, actually. Absolutely. It was a traumatic experience for me. That was in the 70s. So again, I think, there's an education that needs to happen. It needs to happen, and that one black girl can't do it all. She can't be there in the school trying to educate everybody about her hair and about what's that, how come your skin's so oily, or the silly things they used to ask me about me. Yeah, what's all that? Oh, you put oil in your hair, you know, that's, but you've got a pigskin coat on, you've got a pigskin coat, you know. But I realized very quickly from that school, just very quickly, that, you know, they all went on holidays, and, you know, they'd come after and where did you go? We went to Spain. I mean, you know, we played in the street, you know, we were down in Chapeltown. We didn't have that life. It was a privilege, you know, and I think there's a white privilege that people don't get it. Oh, I'm not privileged, but you're privileged. You are privileged, you know, and there is a white privilege there, that you will get more, you will get less sentenced than the other person, or you will get more opportunities, because the careers woman will tell you. And in the 70s, we were all told, oh, no, you're never going to be that. Oh, what are you trying to be that for? Be something different, you know. No, you could never achieve that, you know. And again, you know, my daughter, she's like the first commissioning editor of the Observer, and she had her first cover story this week. And she feels it's really bad to think that I'm one of the first people to be able to do this kind of job, you know, within the media, like you said. And I really do agree, Rebecca, that the representation in the media for so long has been horrendous, you know. And they're trying to change, because you can see the advertising are trying to change, you know. But again, the structures, you know, the film industry, everybody needs to really address it. So for you guys, for your next generation, it needs to change.
Yeah, I know a girl, when you're talking about high school, I know a girl who said to me, like, I never met a brown person or a black person until I got to high school. I was like 11 years of your life and you never met one. And it's just like, it's because the areas that I live in, they're just not diverse, and it's just
not diverse. No, I used to go down to little villages to do workshops in some of those small little villages, and some of the little kids used to say, does it come off? Can I rub you? And the teachers were dragging them away. They'd be asking if this comes off. You know, I've had so many racist comments from young people that don't really realize it, but they've never seen a black person before. They've never really associated with them. So I do think there's a long way to go. As much as, there's a long way to go just in perceptions.
I think we need to start normalizing conversations about race.
Yeah.
If you don't talk about it, if you don't talk about it, for white children, if they're not taught about it, they will be racist. Because the society is racist. So if you don't input anything into them, the society will just do it. So then you counter the argument.
Yeah,
you can't just ignore it.
I agree. And that's why the work I do, and that's probably why I've always been an activist type person. So we would go in and challenge those young people about identity and who you are. And a lot of situations for me have been an all-white group, because it'd be an all-white class full of children. And, you know, asking them about race and to be honest, there's a lot of work to be done, because when you ask them to truly be honest just among their own, and I'm not going to judge you for what you say, you know, horrendous things do come out. You know, a lot of racism is there, and it is embedded in. And again, you know, we are in a society, and we learn from our parents, we learn from society. And I think, there is a lot of discussion that does need to happen, absolutely. And I think for years we've felt as if, you know, they're a bit embarrassed by our conversation, that they would, oh, you know, why you always talk the race card or chip on your shoulder, and you know, it's a conversation. We need to have this conversation, as embarrassing as it is, and I'm sure the Jews felt the same way with what happened to them, that, you know, with the Holocaust, that, you know, if they were never allowed to speak about it, and because it just made somebody else feel bad, that's not good.
No, definitely not.
It's not good. Why are we any different? Why are we any different? We're no different. No different.
At university, we have some tutorials on racial bias, and so you'll have people in the class that are like, you know, we're not racist, no, we're not racist, but when the conversations come up about like looking at what bias can look like, or what like racism can look like, you know, everyone looks really uncomfortable in the room speaking about it.
Yeah.
It looks like a really, really difficult conversation to have, and I'm just like, I am a fountain, like I can literally speak about this all day. I don't look so uncomfortable. Yeah, I'm ready.
Because this is our conversation, because we always have this conversation. We understand this conversation among ourselves, but we need to share this conversation, and we've always needed to share it. So yeah.
And even recently, like Channel 4 had this documentary, and they went into a school and like basically they did like a racial bias test, and then they found out that like most of the kids had an extreme bias towards white people. And then they were like, and the kids were just like so shocked, because they were like, a lot of the white kids are like, oh, I don't think about race, and it's nothing I ever talk about.
Exactly.
And they were shocked to find out that they actually prefer white people over a lot of black people, and they split them. They said, oh, if you're white, go into this room, and if you're like not, stay here. And they were so uncomfortable, like even talking about it. They were literally sat like it's a funeral.
Yes. And the other group were like this. They were like, yeah.
Like dancing and having a party. And we're like having a good time, and the white kids were like, oh, like, are they having a good time because we're not there? Like, what's going on? They were just like so uncomfortable. It was kind of
yeah, it's really interesting. I think it's educating. It was about a school, wasn't it? It was
like, I think called the racism. School that tried to end racism. I think
that's the one.
Is this the same thing as the blue eye, brown eye?
Similar, but it's it's a study. Yeah,
because I've seen that years ago when the lady did that. I forgot her name, but
yes, that's right. Yes, exactly. That needs to happen. I found that interesting as well, Rebecca. I thought it was very, very interesting, because that's some of the work I do when I go into the schools about identity and challenging those stereotypes. And I did the blue-eyed, like you said, brown-eyed experiment with some of my young people in terms of identity and just getting them to realize what it's like. And it is profound, and it does need to be rolled out. But I think there is a fear, like you said, there's a fear because white people don't have to have this good discussion because they don't face racism. They don't, it's not affected, they're not affected by that type of discrimination. So they just don't have that conversation. It's quite uncomfortable to be blamed. They feel like we're blaming them. We're not actually blaming them.
Yeah, we're not actually blaming them. And I think that's the misconstrued thing with a lot of white people, is that they think that it is a blame thing, and we weren't a part of slavery, so it's not our fault. Like, you know, there's nothing that we can do. We're just born white, just like you're born black. Do you know what I mean? Right. And I think I think they need to take that out of it. It's not a blame thing. It's just about having some understanding and knowing the difficulties that black and brown people experience, you know what I mean? And I don't think you need to blame yourself to have that understanding. Do you know what I mean?
I agree, absolutely agree. And again, it's that form of guilt, because I think if you know something and you know that certain inequalities, and if I knew there were a set of people over there that weren't really, you know, represented, or they're not really, maybe I feel bad because we're represented. So maybe it's a bit of guilt, but we can't be responsible for your guilt. I don't want to be responsible for you. Oh, you're guilty, so I'm not gonna say anything. We have to say something. In our time, we just kicked down, we smashed up the place. So I'm really glad to see. And we just smashed it all up, because it was, like you said, it was about housing. And we had the worst housing, and the housing was so bad here, and the conditions, and we didn't have, that's why after the riots, we got Mandela Center. After the riots, they improved this, and they gave people jobs and positions, and that was after a riot. So we thought, oh, okay, you're right, and you get something done, because they're not even hearing what we're saying, but they're listening to you guys, your generation. They're actually
Definitely.
listening. They're actually listening. So
And I think
think
bottom line, people fear what they don't understand. Like, I think that's a given in any situation, whether it's to do with, you know, race or whatever. Like, people tend to build up fear, even when talking about COVID or what was happening with that. You know, people didn't really understand what was going on, and automatically it evoked fear in people, and that tends to happen.
Because
okay.
Sorry, I just want to add one last thing, because you write the report about COVID and the disparity between the Black communities, and that's economic, social, it's all of these things that affect us. It's because of, like you said, we are more likely to be the taxi drivers, we're more likely to be the front care workers, you know, in those particular type of jobs that are low paid. Because those adult care workers, the ones that look after you know, vulnerable people, you know, are not cared for in society in the majority. And you know, even doctors, and some of these people that have died within our communities. And there's definitely, we need to address those reports that have been coming out, and I think that needs to be a focus. Why is this happening? And why are we in those housing, like you said? Why are we in these communities and we're all squashed together? We're all in this, like, how many families in one house? Of course, COVID's going to run riot through the family.
Yeah.
So anyway, I could go on forever.
So could I.
Paulette, what are your hopes and dreams for the future?
Well, my hopes and dreams for the future is that the next generation, to see the next generation be empowered, because I really am inspired by this next generation standing up, and really, because you guys adopted Black British, I didn't. I mean, eventually, in my time, it was like, Black British, what they're talking about? They don't want us here. You guys have embraced that, and I have, you know, as well. But yeah, you really belong here, and I really feel as if, yeah, this movement can change things, and it can make a difference. And I'm really hoping that it does really make a difference in the political arena and really start to affect. So that's what I hope for the future, that my grandchildren don't have to march down no street, that they can be seen as a human being and live in this world with equal opportunities just like everybody else. And when I'm not here, that can be the status quo. Let's pray.
Yeah, most definitely.
What about you, Sarah? What's your hopes?
Yeah, the same thing. I just want to like go through life with the same opportunities as everybody else, and just like not worry about, not have that in the back of my mind constantly. Did I not get this because of the colour of my skin, because of my name, because of this? You know, I just, you know, you want to feel safe, and you want, you know, and just feel like even the subtle things on the street, when, you know, you walk past somebody and they'll tut at you if you're on the same side of the path, and you're just like, that's a subtle thing, but I know you wouldn't do that to somebody else who was white. Like little things like that, you know, just everyday things that make you feel less, just for them to not be around anymore, just to not exist.
I think my hopes and dreams for the future is for little Black and brown girls that eventually grow up to be young women, adult, you know, women in this world, because I feel like we get the really bad end of the stick, being a woman, and obviously being a woman of colour. Like, I feel there's a lot of things attached to that, and there's a lot of barriers, a lot of struggles, and a lot of just adversity that comes with that. And I think my hopes and dreams, just raising two beautiful Black children, daughters in particular, I just think I'd want it easier for them, or easier for any other Black little girl or brown little girl growing up. I'd want it easier for them, so they're not judged, they're not seen as angry, they're not seen as less attractive, you know, all those negative stereotypes that are attached to Black girls and Black women. I really would love for that to be different, and to be part of a world where people didn't look at you in a way that they do in today's society.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, I think also just to actually feel like you're equal with other people, and like sometimes you either feel like you haven't got the opportunity because of your skin color, but then like me and my sister were saying that some people, then when you do get a job, some white people think, oh, you've only got the job to fill the quota.
Exactly.
So they think, oh, so even though there might be some white people that are mediocre, they're scrutinizing you more because you've only got the job because of your skin color. So I just want it all to be seen like more equal, and not to be prejudged, even down to they did like studies saying that if you had like an Asian or African sounding name, you were less likely to get the job just because of that. And my name's quite an English or Eurocentric name, so it doesn't necessarily affect me. But to know that someone else, if they had like an Arabic last name or a Nigerian name, even if they had all the qualifications, they'd write them off just because of that, down to the point where some people change the name so that they can get into jobs more easily. So I just think things like that need to go away, and people don't see that as a bias, but you are basically saying, no, this name sounds like a white person, so I'm going to let them in, and this one doesn't, so I'm not.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely brilliant, just to aware that. And again, I think we're just such in an important time that I feel we should definitely keep the conversation going, because within our Black communities, we know where the problems are, even within ourselves, because the racism has been internalized, and I think it's turned against ourselves as well. There's an element of us fighting each other too, and we know what's wrong with our communities, and we know we need to have that discussion about that, and we need to talk about all of these caste systems within our own communities, because the lighter you are, the darker. I heard you say my black skinned girls, because my girls used to get, oh, you're black, you're too black, like the darker you are, or something.
But that happens within our own community. And just to touch what you just said, Paulette, about we fight amongst ourselves. Like there's this thing about, I read it somewhere about black on black crime, and this quote or this kind of piece that I read, this article, it was basically saying about there's no such, it was a Carla that was actually talking about it.
Yes.
There shouldn't be no such thing as black on black crime. It should just be crime.
Yes, it's crime.
When the Mexican cartels are warring against each other, or the Chinese triads are warring, it's not Chinese against Chinese crime.
Yeah, that's right.
It's crime. So why does it need to be labelled, or the narrative need to be black on black crime? It's just crime, and they're in a community where they all live together, and they might be warring with each other, but it doesn't need to, the narrative doesn't need to be put out there that it's black on black crime, because I think that just perpetuates more negative portrayal of black people in the media when it's out there like that.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely. Yeah.
I think it's used to deflect away from the conversation when you're talking about police brutality and stuff. That's when it always gets pulled up. So that's
absolutely agree. Yeah, and I think that's what I'm saying, that we need to continue this conversation in our own communities, because we know, like I said, where the issues might be, or where the support that might be, because there may be families out there that do need certain support, but they would never go to the system for that support. But they may need support with their teenagers growing up, and in a society that is discriminatory. It's discrimination a lot of the time that leads a lot of young people to feel as if the street, they belong on that street, and I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done with our young people to empower them to say, you're an entrepreneur, and there's opportunities, there's all sorts of opportunities that you can, go into. And I think, we need to have that conversation, and much more of who's leading us as a black community, who's out there. I'm not saying we need a leader, we don't necessarily need that maybe, but do you get what I'm saying? Who's kind of, we need those figures out there, definitely speaking up.
Paulette, just before we totally finish up, what's the playlist of your life? So a list of 5 or 10 songs that kind of represent you or your life or what you're passionate about.
I'm gonna say one. I can only think of one.
Let's all say one.
Because 10 is a lot in my mind, right? and it's just one. For me, years ago, as a young person, I got the opportunity to support an artist called Gil Scott-Heron. Now, I didn't know it was him at the time, and he is one of the most amazing poets, writers he's very historical. And we met him afterwards, and this is in the 70s, and he's got a song that the revolution will be televised. And that is definitely one on my playlist. So Gil Scott-Heron, the revolution will not be televised. So that's someone I'd say for me, it's my inspiration. So look for that track. Check it out.
Can I just say, I've got so many that I would choose, but this one's popping really in my head. like this song by an artist called Nas. Some of you will know who Nas is. He's not as popping as what he was in my day, but I still listen to his music. But he had this song called "If I Ruled the World," and
That was
just
gonna
the
be
words in
mine.
it resonates so well with me. Just back then when I was a teenager, and just in the present time that we're in, like I feel the words that he speaks on is relevant to today. And yeah, there's so many other songs. There's a song called One Blood. You'll know what, I don't know the artist though, Paulette. It's
Yes,
like
yes. Yeah.
It's a reggae song. And
yes, I know you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
One blood. One blood. Yeah.
One blood.
Yeah.
He speaks about, he's a reggae artist from Jamaica, and he speaks about just, it doesn't matter if you're Chinese, black, white, whether you're a musician, whether you're a shop owner, like, it's your one blood. And I've been playing it of late. One Extra have been playing it, and I've just been blaring it out because it's also relevant to the given time. And then just the one song, Bob Marley, One Love. Do you know what I mean? He says it all.
Definitely. All says everything.
So yeah, there's my three. Oh, Rebecca.
Probably Nina Simone, Young, Gifted and Black. My mum played that a lot when we were young. I think that's probably one of the ones, and I'm not sure what else. Yeah, probably is that one.
I think that's a good one.
That's
that one.
Good one. Yeah, definitely.
Trying to think of one, because literally, I was literally going to say the exact same one that you
gonna
said.
say that?
Literally.
Oh, that's cool. You can have that one. You should have that one. Take it.
I tried George Rock. I was like, oh, same one.
You know that you're too young.
No, I love it. It's because I was listening to Lauryn Hill, and then it like kept playing, and it kept playing, and it kept playing.
And there's enough Lauryn Hill songs that I feel.
Yeah. Oh, I think maybe like J. Cole, like Crooked Smile, like Crooked Smile by J. Cole. I think the music video to that is really good as well.
And the lyrics are conscious out there.
Yeah,
really. I like J. Cole.
Mm-hmm. And anything Lauryn Hill.
Yeah, anything she does.
What do you guys want to mention about Sharon?
Oh yeah, Sharon will be doing, she's a DJ, and she'll be making a playlist of all these songs. So stay tuned for that when they come out.
Okay, guys. Well, I just want to say a big thank you to you, Paulette, for agreeing to do this interview. Like, you know, you do so much brilliant work in the community, and I just think you are somebody that I feel, you know, has so much relevant stuff to talk about in terms of what you do in the community and what you do in terms of your career with the music, and just on this issue around Black Lives Matter. I think you have a lot to bring to this conversation, and also Rebecca and Sarah, as young people and as young women of colour, I think that you have so much stuff to bring to this conversation as well. This conversation, I just think it needs to go into next week. Like, I don't think
it does.
Having this conversation and just ending it here. So potentially we are going to talk more on racial justice in next week's Getaway Girls Live, and we might have some other people on to have to have other conversations. And maybe I think it'd be wise to have other people like white people on here.
Absolutely agree.
Conversation, because you know we're passionate about this because we live it. You know, we're people of color, but I think it's important to also hear the voices of someone that is white, and like, you know, how they see their privilege, or how they see this whole thing, this whole movement that's happening at the moment. So watch this space, guys, for next week.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you. Absolutely loved it. Thank you.